Enjoy your time here and find peace in the stories we tell. If you liked the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. When I was 14 years old, amid the chaos of war and fleeing for my life, I happened upon a young lady on the road. Later, when she died, I took what little she had left, borrowed her identity, and lived in her place in the capital city of Bianjing, finding peace and stability at last. Then one day, I killed someone right in the middle of my shop. My husband saw it happen. His face turned deathly pale, and he stared at me in shock. "You're just a weak woman. How could you dare to kill someone?" I let out a cold laugh, my voice as icy as frost. "Including her, I've already killed 3 people. Please, let me tell you my story. In the 3rd year of the Xining era, during the autumn, while fleeing from disaster, I once saved a young lady. Later, she died at Snow Eagle Mountain. I took her clothes and her dried rations, and followed the road from Shizhou all the way to Bianjing. She had told me that her home was outside the Wansheng Gate in Bianjing, that she had a father, a younger brother, and a stepmother with a cruel disposition. But when I finally arrived in Bianjing, I discovered that her father had long since passed away. The house had fallen into ruin, and the stepmother had taken advantage of the floods to clean out everything of value. Her 5-year-old brother had been sent to the Fuchsian orphanage. In the 3rd month of late spring, I found work at a roast meat shop near Yunnan Bridge in the southern district to make ends meet. Then I went to the Fuchsian orphanage and brought the little one out. Every day, I carried my baskets through the alleys selling fried dough rings. The little boy would sit quietly beside me, head bowed, never straying even half a step away. "Miss Vivian Lee, 1 serving of fried dough rings, please." Mrs. Wu, who sold candy at the head of the alley, had always been fond of crispy things. Ever since I arrived, every 3 days she would spend 3 wen at my stall. I smiled pleasantly at her, but instead of leaving she winked at me knowingly. "Miss Vivian, how much does the Lou family charge you for that servant's quarters you're renting?" 800 wen. 800. You could search all of Bianjing and hardly find a place that cheap. It's very cheap, but I have to work hard to pay off the rent. What? Don't you see anything unusual about that? I pressed my lips together in a smile and shook my head innocently. No, nothing at all. She looks clever enough, but turns out she's just a fool. Remember to be careful when night falls. Mrs. Wu cast a sidelong glance toward the Lou family roast meat shop beneath the big locust tree nearby, her face full of contempt. The hearts of people are difficult to read. That mother and son pair. She gave a cold snort and turned to leave. As she passed the child who was innocently kicking pebbles at my feet, she muttered, "And here's another little fool." The fried dough rings I made were golden as butterfly wings, crispy and fragrant. Every day they sold out completely. Today was no different. The sun hadn't even begun its descent when my baskets were completely empty. On the way back, the little boy who had always been so quiet suddenly spoke up from behind me, his voice hoarse and thick. "I'm not a fool." You say you're not a fool? Then let me ask your name. Felix Day. And who is your older sister? Eleanor Lee. And what about me? Sister, your name is Li Hui. I burst out laughing, both annoyed and amused. This rotten little brat was actually quite cunning, wasn't he? Speak up. Are you deliberately insulting me? My name is Vivian, the Huan, as in jade bracelet. In the former dynasty, there was a noble consort of the Yang family who shared the same name as me, and I'm just as beautiful as she was. Remember it well this time. If you get it wrong again, don't expect any food. Felix pouted and muttered under his breath. Won't give me food, yet says she's not mean. From the time I brought him out of the Fuchsian orphanage half a month ago, this was the first time the little brat had been willing to speak to me so much. These past few days, seeing his complexion gradually brighten, his personality becoming more lively, his words growing more mischievous, I felt warmth spreading through my heart, too happy for words. I'll feed you. I promised Eleanor that I would fatten you up, make you healthy and strong. Don't worry. From now on, I'll be your older sister. The moment we pushed through the door of the roast meat shop, beneath the big locust tree at the head of the alley, Madame Lou rushed out to greet us. Little Vivian. Oh my, such hard work. Rest quickly. I showed no emotion, skillfully avoiding the hand she extended, and simply smiled pleasantly in response. If it weren't for Madame's kindness, how could we 2 sisters have such peaceful days as these? Oh, we're all one family. No need for such formalities, David. Little Vivian is back. Quickly bring out a bowl of honey citrus water. Madame Lou's son, David Lou, was loudly chopping meat on the cutting board in the courtyard. As he chopped, he occasionally glanced in my direction, his eyes unable to hide a trace of lust. Hearing Madame Lou's call, he turned to fetch the honey water. I had already set down my baskets and pushed Felix inside, saying Madame is too kind. Today is the 8th, and I need to deliver roast meat to the Lou Manor. With that, I hurried toward the kitchen, grabbed the lacquered food box with the character Lou on it, and left the shop as quickly as lightning. By then, the sun had shifted westward, and the evening glow painted the entire sky purple. Only when I merged into the bustling crowds of Beijing's streets did I finally exhale a long breath from deep within my chest. David at the roast meat shop was already past 20 this year. Because of his stubborn temperament and the fact that he spent every day hauling pigs and butchering meat, his body reeked of blood and filth year-round, so he still hadn't managed to marry. Yet Madame Lou remained proud and particular, finding fault with every young lady who came along. Now, seeing that the situation had reached the point where she had to lower her standards and choose a wife of lesser standing, somehow she had set her sights on me. That mother and son pair. One would pretend to be friendly and gentle during the day to win my favor, while the other would secretly tap on my window at night. Though I had long since seen through their intentions, because of my poverty I had no choice but to endure it temporarily. The Lou family had been longtime customers of the roast meat shop. I heard that the old lady was advanced in years with weak teeth, and loved nothing more than tender, braised pork belly that was both red and white, soft and flavorful. So on the 1st and 8th of every month, the Lou family would send someone to deliver a food box to the Lou Manor. The Lou Manor was located near Taiping Bridge. I had been there twice before, and this time was no different. The old servant at the gate had me wait in the corridor, while he personally took the blue and white porcelain dish from the box, and went inside to announce my arrival. Viewed from outside, the Lou Manor had white walls and black tiles. Even the main gate wasn't particularly imposing. But the interior furnishings were exquisitely refined. Pavilions and corridors were hidden among bamboo groves, with streams and decorative rocks all around. It was the 4th month, the height of spring's splendor. In the garden facing the corridor grew a whole expanse of drooping crabapple trees, now blooming brilliantly in fresh pink, glorious and perfectly timed. The old servant still hadn't returned, and the fragrance of crabapple blossoms in the spring breeze made my heart restless and itchy. Unable to resist, I took a few steps toward the garden. But the moment I approached the crabapple tree, a long sword suddenly flashed past my temple, thrusting toward me swift as the wind. Oh no! I had no time to defend myself. Terrified, I leaned backward and nearly fell, only to be caught from behind by a man's hand that steadied me firmly. The long sword flew through the air, robes fluttering in the wind. Flower fragrance, bamboo scent, wine fumes, light and shadow, human forms and sword images all merged into one. In that instant I was trapped in place, unable to move even half a step. Beacon fires illuminate the western capital. Unrest fills my heart. But while the Dragon City has its flying general, the barbarian horses shall not cross the Yin Mountains. I wish to serve my country with this body. Why should I need to enter the Jade Gate Pass? The man in purple robes danced with his sword in the garden, clearly drunk. His steps wavered, his eyes were hazy, his mouth chanting heroic verses while his hands wielded the sword without pause. The long blade in his grip nearly struck me several times. I silently groaned in distress. Surrounded by these flying sword flowers, I could only grip my teeth and inch backward toward the corridor, one small step at a time. Several pots of white porcelain flowers lined the corridor. Sweat poured off me like rain. I quietly moved to stand before one of the flower pots. Taking advantage of the moment when the drunken man's back was turned, I lifted the pot and suddenly brought it down hard on the back of his neck. He whirled around abruptly, eyes wide as he stared at me, his face showing clear disbelief. In that instant, I felt only a chill run down my spine. My face turned deathly pale, certain that this time I would have to receive a fatal sword strike. But to my surprise, the next second he closed his eyes and fell backward to the ground, sleeping soundly as if he'd been drunk for hours. Felix and I lived in a small servants' quarters behind the roast meat shop. Originally it had been a storage room with not even a bed. I had to gather scraps of wood and planks to piece together a crude sleeping platform. At night, we squeezed together on it to sleep. That night, around the third watch, the familiar tapping on the window sounded again, annoying and persistent. Tap, tap, tap. Felix curled up in terror beneath the blanket, his voice trembling. Sister Vivian, the ghost is here again. I held him tightly in my arms, speaking softly to comfort him while also reassuring myself. Your name is Felix. Naturally, you have Buddha's protection from above. Ghosts should fear you. Why should you fear them? That's right, ghosts are afraid of you. Go out there and beat it up. The foolish little boy, hearing my nonsense, immediately kicked off the blanket with brave determination, ready to charge out. I hurriedly held him back and pressed him down onto the straw mattress. This ghost only dares to tap on windows. It must be quite pitiful, really. Let's spare it just this once. Fine, I'll spare it for now. A 5-year-old child was naturally easy to fool. But how could he know that the truly frightening thing in this world wasn't evil spirits, but the hearts of wicked people? Fortunately, that David was the lustful but cowardly type. At most, he only dared to tap on windows in the middle of the night and steal furtive glances at my waist. Even if he truly had the courage, he'd first have to get past the knife I kept hidden under my pillow. I had originally intended to bury the incident at the Lou Manor deep in my heart. But unexpectedly, a few days later, while selling fried dough rings at the head of the alley, I accidentally encountered that drunken swordsman again. He wore a fitted robe of emerald green and rode past my stall on horseback. Even after his horse had gone some distance, he still turned his head back, his face showing traces of doubt. Afraid of being recognized, I kept my head lowered the entire time, not daring to look up. But then Felix beside me suddenly tugged lightly at my sleeve. Sister, I'm hungry again. Wait a moment, I'll go buy you some steamed buns. Fried dough rings cost 3 yen per serving. Though delicious, they were hard to fill one's stomach with. Steamed buns were large and round, soft and warm, costing only 2 yen each. I was poor. So poor I wished I could split 1 yen into 8 pieces to spend. On ordinary days, I only dared to eat cheap things like steamed buns. So I told Felix to watch the baskets obediently while I hurried to a nearby food stall. But when I returned, Felix was holding a jade pendant so white it seemed to glow. Where did this come from? I immediately frowned and asked. Felix happily pointed to a pit in front of him. I found it there. Found it. I took the jade pendant and examined it carefully, turning it over and over. At first glance, anyone could tell it was a valuable item. We needed to return it to whoever lost it quickly. Is it very valuable? How many steamed buns could it buy? At least 100 of them. That day, the fried dough rings still sold quickly. But I worried that the person who lost it would return to search for it, so I had Felix sit waiting on a stone by the roadside. We waited until nearly noon, and sure enough, someone came looking. And it was none other than that drunken swordsman from before. The April sun blazed hot. The drunk received his jade pendant back, then bent down to pat Felix's head with a smile. Little fellow, do you know how much this jade pendant is worth? Felix immediately looked quite pleased with himself. It's worth 100 steamed buns. 100 steamed buns. Who told you that? The drunk was both angry and amused. My sister did. The drunk straightened up and followed the direction of Felix's pointing finger, tilting his head slightly to look at me with a smile. After a long moment, he finally spoke. It was you that day, wasn't it? I felt embarrassed and hurriedly played dumb. It wasn't me. My little brother was the one who found it. Still pretending? It was definitely you. He emphasized each word, his eyes never leaving my face. The roast meat, the white porcelain flower pot, and the wound on my body too. As he spoke, he raised his hand to rub the back of his neck, then stared intently at my face. I still clearly remember the red beauty mark on your forehead. Honorable sir, that day I truly thought. I had assumed he would come back to settle accounts with me, but before I could finish speaking, he stepped forward and respectfully clasped his hands in salute. Please forgive me, miss. That day I, Jasper Lou, was drunk and behaved improperly. I unintentionally offended you. I beg your forgiveness. This drunken swordsman gave his name as Jasper. He currently held the 6th rank position of Deputy Imperial Armory Officer in the palace. As for the jade pendant that Felix had found, he had just purchased it at great cost from a Western region merchant a few days prior for 200 strings of cash. Good heavens! Here was a noble gentleman who wore several hundred strings of cash at his waist and just wandered freely through the streets. He'd nearly had his neck broken by my flower pot. As expected of a noble, he was generous indeed. He insisted on giving a reward, pulling out his money pouch without a word and stuffing it into Felix's hands. I was startled, my heart trembling as I hurriedly declined. But he had already tucked the entire pouch into the little one's chest. As he mounted his horse, he turned back and left us with these words: "You two siblings are both honest people. If anything comes up, just come find me at the Lou Manor." Sister, sister. Jasper's horse had already disappeared beyond the end of the alley, yet I still stood there in a daze, completely lost. Drowning in joy to the point of losing myself, I stared blankly at the golden dust kicked up by the horse's hooves. "Sister, have you gone stupid?" Seeing my cheeks flush red, Felix immediately became anxious. My hands trembling, I snatched the money pouch and tucked it into my chest, my voice thick with excitement. "Felix, do you still want to eat steamed pears?" "Want them so much I dream about them." There was a small stall in the alley that sold steamed pears. For just 1 yuan, you could buy 5 large, round ones. Every time Felix passed by, he would swallow his saliva longingly. "I'll buy you 10, eat until you're absolutely full." Today I'd struck it rich. I had to allow myself this small extravagance. In one go I bought a full 10 steamed pears for Felix, but unexpectedly, the foolish little boy developed a strange quirk. He ate 3 of them, then insisted on shoving one into my mouth. The remaining 6 he hid away under his pillow like a squirrel hoarding food for winter. "Those things spoil easily if you keep them too long," I kindly reminded him, but he didn't care much. "Even if they spoil, they're still sweet." In the middle of the night, a rustling sound came from outside the window, followed immediately by a man's miserable cry. "Mother, help me." It turned out to be David. He'd carelessly stepped on the rat trap I'd placed beneath my window and was now crying and shouting noisily out there. He. Felix and I, hearing this, immediately buried ourselves under the blanket laughing until our stomachs hurt. "Sister, why didn't we spare that ghost today? We'll have money now. Why should we spare him? Having money means you don't have to forgive people." I gently pinched Felix's little face, my voice tender yet firm. "Money is a person's lifeblood. With money, no one will dare bully us anymore." Felix blinked at me in the darkness, speaking slowly. "Sister, I understand now. With money, we can chase that ghost away." "Exactly. Tomorrow I'll take you to rent a new place." Over this past month I'd scrimped and saved nearly 1 string of cash. Combined with the 2 silver ingots Jasper had given us, it was enough for us 2 siblings to leave this smoke-filled butcher's den. On a spring night in the 4th month in Bianjing, even the night breeze carried the sweet fragrance of flowers. That night I had a long dream. In it, I returned to the goddess temple atop Snow Eagle Mountain in Shizhou. In the freezing mountain air, beneath dense ancient trees, Eleanor was sitting in the temple, her body trembling with cold as she used an incense burner to melt snow bit by bit. After half a year apart, my heart ached. I stepped forward and embraced her tightly. "Eleanor, has your illness recovered?" She also gripped my hand tightly, her thin, pale cheeks flushed with a strange reddish tint. "I'm recovered. All better now. Thank you, little sister. Vivian, your days and Felix's will only get better from now on." My name is Vivian. The Han in my name means cycle, one misfortune following another in endless rotation. I had originally planned to find a stable home as soon as possible to settle down. But unexpectedly, just as I was scraping by, Felix fell ill. Felix had been a troublesome child from the start. Years ago, when Lady Li was pregnant with him, she nearly miscarried several times. Afterward, she had to visit every temple and monastery in Bianjing to pray before she finally managed to give birth to him safely. But on the day he was born, Lady Li died from complications of childbirth. While still in swaddling clothes, he was constantly sick and frail, burning with fever one moment, seized by convulsions the next, keeping Master Li anxious day and night. Later, following the persuasion of the concubine in the household, Master Li sent his 11-year-old daughter Eleanor to the famous Sign Temple in Shizhou to cultivate merit and pray for blessings. At the same time, he named his youngest son Felix, meaning that this child could remain in the mortal world only through Buddha's compassion. From the time I brought him to my side, I feared he would be thirsty, feared he would be hungry, feared he would be hot, and feared he would be cold. Wherever I went each day, I took him with me. If he so much as sneezed once, I would startle with worry. I was anxious that something would happen to him, even if it was just a headache or a runny nose. Yet despite such careful attention, he still developed a high fever. His tiny body burned hot as fire. I gritted my teeth, bent down, and hoisted him onto my back. Don't be afraid. Your sister will take you to find a doctor. I'd heard that near Liangmen there was a pharmacy run by old Zhang that carried a special medicinal plaster. Just one piece could break a fever. So I carried Felix on my back all the way from the outer city to the inner city, determined to seek treatment. Old Zhang was a kindly old gentleman. After taking Felix's pulse, he smiled and said, "It's just food stagnation causing heat. Nothing serious. Apply one plaster and the fever will break." Hearing this, I was immensely grateful and immediately bowed my head. "Then please, venerable sir, prescribe a few pieces for us. I'd like to prepare some in advance." "Just saying. 1 string of cash per piece. How many pieces does the young lady want?" I thought I had misheard, my voice stammering slightly. "You said, 1 string of cash per piece." Old Zhang laughed heartily and stroked his long beard. "No shortage, no debt. Fair deal for everyone." "Then, please give me just 1 piece for now." The old man could see I was poor, but I was polite and well-mannered. He didn't say a single harsh word. He slowly applied the plaster to Felix's navel and reminded me to massage his belly frequently. Walking out of the pharmacy, my legs trembled uncontrollably. This city of Bianjing beneath the emperor's feet truly was a difficult place to survive. All the hardship I'd endured scraping together savings for over a month. And in the end it bought me only a single medicinal plaster. "Little ancestor of mine, you must get better quickly. 1 examination costs this much. It's enough to cut a person in half." I deliberately used a teasing tone to coax him. But unexpectedly, he suddenly convulsed violently while still on my back. "Felix, hold on tight." He extended his hand, his voice deep and resonant in my ear. Before I could react, he pulled me forcefully up onto the saddle. The gentle spring breeze of the 4th month swirled around us as the 3 of us rode through the bustling streets of Bianjing, charging straight to the pharmacy on Maxing Street before finally stopping. The moment we dismounted, Jasper immediately scooped up Felix and rushed into the pharmacy. I hurried after them in panic, but unexpectedly, the moment my feet touched the ground, my knees went weak and I collapsed face first right in front of the shop entrance. As if that weren't enough, I had also twisted my ankle. The pain was excruciating. "Felix, Felix." By the time I limped inside, Felix was already lying peacefully on a bed, sleeping soundly. Beside him stood a middle-aged physician carefully performing acupuncture. "Miss, you should take care of yourself first. Your little brother is fine." Jasper had probably never seen such a wretched young lady before. My hair was disheveled. My lips stained with blood, my clothes were patched and torn, I walked with a limp, and every step made me wince in pain. He helped me sit down in a carved chair, then pulled a handkerchief from his chest and extended it toward me. "Here, wipe yourself." I didn't dare accept the handkerchief. I simply raised my hand to wipe the corner of my mouth, then forced a stiff smile and bowed politely to him. "Thank you so much. Your handkerchief must be quite valuable, mustn't it?" He saw through the caution in my eyes and smiled gently, putting the handkerchief back in his chest. "What illness does your little brother have?" "He probably ate too many fried dough rings and developed a fever." I was carrying him to the pharmacy at Liangmen. Who would have thought that halfway there? "You carried him yourself?" Jasper was astonished. "From Yinan Bridge to Liangmen. That's no short distance. It must be over an hour's walk at least. But the distance doesn't matter. When children fall ill, it's best to go to Dr. Bai's pharmacy. That shop specializes in treating children. Dr. Bai's elder once served as an imperial physician of the golden purple rank in the palace. Years ago, he treated princes and princesses exclusively. In all of Bianjing, no one is more skilled in pediatrics than him. I lowered my head and spoke softly. "I'm new to Bianjing. I didn't know about such things. Even if I had known about such a place, I wouldn't have dared dream of entering." After Dr. Bai finished the acupuncture on Felix, he prescribed several doses of medicine as well. I suppressed my inner trembling and cautiously asked about the cost. The moment he opened his mouth, he said, 3 strings of cash. Jasper was just reaching out to pay when I hurriedly stopped him and insisted on paying myself. I used the very silver ingots he had given us to settle the account. "We're neither relatives nor friends. Miss, you're on guard against me. I understand. But truly, there's no need to be so formal. I don't lack these few strings of cash, and I have no ulterior motives whatsoever. I simply see you two siblings relying on each other to survive. It's truly not easy. I just want to form a small bond of kindness. Your little brother is currently ill, keeping those silver ingots to buy medicine and food. These are all proper uses. Even your own clothing. His gaze lingered on the torn patch on my trousers, his voice gentle. You should also buy yourself some new clothes, miss. He was a military officer in the palace with a straightforward temperament. I could understand that, of course. But such words were truly too blunt. In just an instant, my heart filled with a mixture of shame and gratitude. I wanted to say a few words in response, but considering that he meant well, if I simply remained silent in front of so many people in the pharmacy, it would truly put me in an awkward position. Thank you, sir, but I already closed my eyes and accepted those silver ingots once before. Today, I absolutely cannot allow you to spend more money on us. To each their own. That was what you rightfully deserved. How could it be deserved? Returning lost items is simply the right thing to do. Moreover, Felix is my little brother. This money should have been paid by me. Miss, your temperament is truly stubborn. It's not stubbornness, it's dignity. In moments, he would say one thing, I would respond with another. Back and forth we went, nearly arguing right there in the middle of the pharmacy. Just then, Dr. Bai stepped forward with a conciliating air. He pointed at Jasper and said to me with a smile, Miss, you don't know this, but this young man here is the famous philanthropic gentleman of Bianjing. Normally, he's always helping those in difficulty and aiding the poor. If you don't let him spend a little money, I'm afraid he won't sleep peacefully even in the middle of the night. But never mind, never mind. Let me be the one who goes with the flow. Miss, you're also a reasonable person, aren't you? Today I'll only charge you 2 strings of cash. As for the remaining 1 string, let's consider it waived out of respect for Master Jasper. How does that sound? With just 1 word from Jasper, he managed to save me 1 string of cash. Afterward, he rode his horse to escort Felix and me back home. Before parting, he repeated his familiar refrain. I have no other intentions, but if you ever encounter any trouble, miss, just come find me at the Lou Manor. Dr. Bai's medical skills were indeed far superior to old Zhang's. That very day when we returned home, Felix's complexion had already improved noticeably. Children aren't good at hiding illness. The moment they feel better, they immediately start chattering nonstop. Sister, have we run out of blood again? He lay in the blanket and while I was massaging his belly, he timidly bit his lip and asked. I froze in surprise. Why would you ask such a thing? Didn't you once say that money is a person's lifeblood? This medical examination must have cost a lot of blood, right? My heart felt as if it had been pricked by a needle. My hands froze mid-motion. I don't know why, but tears suddenly began to fall. Who says children don't understand anything? In truth, they understand even more clearly than adults, sensitive to the point of heartbreak. Why is this foolish child thinking such nonsense? When the blood runs out, there's still flesh. When the flesh runs out, there are still bones. Even if one day the bones are gone, as long as your sister still has 1 breath left, she'll earn money to buy you steamed pears to eat your fill. Hearing this, in the darkness, the little one immediately perked up. I can help too. I smiled gently and pinched his cheek lightly. Silly boy, as long as you stay healthy and grow up safely, that's already helping your sister tremendously. I think I must have caught some sort of affliction. Whenever I had a biddy in hand, trouble would arise. Therefore, I decided that while we still had a little money left, I needed to quickly find a new place to rent. Ever since David stepped on the rat trap and injured his leg, Madame Lou's attitude toward me had completely turned vicious. Lowly creature who doesn't know her place. Just some wild hen that wandered in from who knows where, yet she thinks she's a phoenix. Born with a wretched fate. Even with someone's support, she's still just a peddler carrying baskets to sell. Day after day she would stand in the doorway hurling indirect insults. Her words were so venomous, her saliva flying so copiously, it could drown an ordinary sow. I wasn't the type to be easily bullied. If I were alone in this world, I would have long since grabbed that hair of hers and yanked it bald. But now I had a weakness. I could only endure temporarily, learning the saying, when living under a low eave, one must bow one's head. Fortunately, before long I found a new house to rent. The house was right below Jinliang Bridge. The landlords were an elderly couple. They lived in a 2-story house facing the street. Seeing it was wasteful to leave space empty, they partitioned the second floor into 3 small rooms for rent, and divided the more spacious first floor into 2 halves as well. Normally, the couple lived in the back room on the first floor, reserving the front room for a little trading. I rented a single room on the second floor. Seeing that the front room on the first floor was also bright and airy, I gritted my teeth and rented that as well, planning to sell fried dough rings and spicy soup there in the future. By the time we finished renovating and stocking up on pots and pans, the 2 silver ingots that Jasper had given us were nearly exhausted. Seeing my gloomy expression, Felix lay draped across my lap, smiling as he tried to comfort me sweetly. "Sister, don't be sad. In the future, I'll go pick up scraps again." I let out a snort of laughter. "Sit still in one place for me. Don't go getting sick, Ag." The words had barely reached my lips when I suddenly remembered something he'd said innocently the night before. The word, money, immediately caught in my throat. I couldn't bear to say it. In Bianjing, there are countless child kidnappers. You're not allowed to run around everywhere. Remember? At the beginning of the 5th month, beneath Jinliang Bridge in Bianjing, a small shop quietly appeared bearing the name, Miss Vivian's Fried Dough Rings. The fried dough rings there were as light and thin as butterfly wings, fried to a golden crisp, while the spicy soup was rich and perfectly seasoned. Drinking it warmed the stomach, making one's entire body feel relaxed and refreshed. Every day at the Ire of the Rabbit, I would already be bustling about, stoking the fire, setting up the stove, frying dough rings, boiling water, and simmering bone broth. By the time dawn broke dimly, the sound of wooden fish and sutra chanting from several temples along the street would rise up as the morning call. The butterfly-shaped fried dough rings had turned a brilliant golden yellow. So light they seemed ready to fly out of their covered baskets. The pot of spicy soup bubbled away, tiny foam rising continuously like crab eyes. The fragrance spread on the early summer breeze of Banjing, quietly awakening each person who was hurrying into the streets for their daily bread. I was the type of person who was poor to the point of madness. I lost my mother at 3, my father at 4. My childhood memories were of begging for food until I was 8 or 9 years old. Later, I worked in the kitchen of a wealthy household, stoking fires, lighting stoves, slaughtering chickens and butchering goats, competing with dogs for every scrap of food. Later still, Shizhou fell into chaos. On the road fleeing disaster, I encountered bandits, and even my meager bag of dried rations was stolen clean. If Eleanor hadn't rescued me that year, I fear I would have long since turned into a pile of white bones on the slopes of Snow Eagle Mountain. Living in Bianjing was truly not easy, but making a living here wasn't actually that difficult either. Just maintaining a small shop like this, I could earn 200 yuan each day. Though it couldn't bring wealth and glory, it was enough to feed 2 mouths without going hungry or cold. That hateful little Felix. I'd told him countless times not to run around everywhere, yet he remained the same as ever. Every time he went out on the streets, he'd drag all sorts of things back home. "Sister, are these shoes worth any money? Sister, is this rock valuable? Sister, this handkerchief looks pretty decent. Could it probably sell for some money?" Time and again, every time I saw the small light in that child's eyes gradually dim, my heart felt as if it were being squeezed. In the end, I couldn't bear to extinguish that tender hope. So I could only pretend to be amazed at those tattered shoes with no soles left, the mud-covered rock, and the handkerchief reeking of sweat. Oh, valuable. Truly precious. Our Felix really has talent. I know. Sister, I want to eat steamed pears. Buy them. How many should I buy for you? Enough, right? I gritted my teeth through the pain and forced myself to speak generously. Enough already. This little brat truly spent money like water flowing through his hands. Good morning, little sister Vivian. The sun had already risen 3 marks high. Flora, who rented a room upstairs, draped a thin crimson robe over herself and yawned lazily as she descended from the 2nd floor, her body swaying gracefully like flowing water. It's hardly morning anymore. It's already the hour of the snake. I've already sold 3 pots of spicy soup. Grace has long since gone to the mansion of Lord Zai to prepare a feast. Heemph. She has to support her son, and you have to support your little brother. What do I have to compete with you two about? She leaned against the wooden railing, her expression lazy, silently gazing at the street scene for a while. Then she suddenly remembered the little song she had taught me yesterday. You fool, did you learn that song yet? She narrowed her peach blossom eyes, her gaze playfully teasing. I nodded. I learned it already. Sing a few lines for me to hear. Flowers bright, moon dim, gauze dress thin. Tonight I wish to walk with you. Bare feet tread the fragrant steps in quiet night, hand carrying an embroidered pouch with golden thread. Meeting at the southern pavilion, the cord is short, timidly nestling close to my lover's shadow. Coming out was not easy. Please take pity on me, do as you wish, as your heart desires. I cleared my throat softly. While turning the dough rings in the bubbling oil, I hummed the tune gently. Wrong, wrong. You're singing a little song, not arguing with some sour-faced woman at the market. You need to be gentler, softer, like me. Flora twisted her slender waist slightly, curved her orchid fingers delicately, tilted her head with a coquettish glance, her every gesture full of allure. As your heart desires. Just then, Felix came through the door carrying something he'd picked up from who knows where. The moment he heard this line, he immediately spat out a large mouthful of pure pulp. I was startled and quickly dropped my iron chopsticks to run over. What's wrong? Felix let out a cry and sobbed. Ate too many steam pears. Feeling sick, want to throw up. In the blink of an eye, we had entered midsummer. The night market in Bianjing grew more lively with each passing day, and my small shop consequently stayed open later as well. These past few months, I had become completely consumed by money, living off every copper coin I scraped together. I rose at the crack of dawn and didn't rest until late at night. Apart from going daily to the Dongyu temple outside the Zhaokao gate to offer incense and pray for Felix's blessings, I hardly set foot outside anymore. Because of this, Flora shook her head and mocked me every day. Are you made of iron or something? No, wait. I should say you're a fried dough ring made of iron. That would be more accurate. I glared at her. Well, have you managed to get on stage yet? Have you received any silver rewards? Have you become the most famous singing girl yet? Flora had originally been a servant attending to singing girls in the entertainment district west of the city. She had her heart set on becoming like Miss Zhao V, the woman she served. That woman need only appear once to receive a reward of 1,000 yuan in cash and 6 bolts of silk. Yet to this day, she remained nothing more than a nameless maid who had never even had the curtain of the stage lifted for her to pass through. Whenever the two of us quarreled, Grace, who rented with us, would have to step out and mediate. You two argue every single day. What on earth is worth arguing about? Flora refused to back down. I'm not the one arguing, but she just keeps nagging endlessly. Look at how she's worn down my poor son with her constant scolding. Even on his days off, he wishes he could just hide away in the academy forever. Grace let out a long sigh. Who told me I'm a lonely widow with no one to rely on? You all know that my husband was hauling cargo on the river and sea that year. Who would have thought that a plank from the bridge would suddenly fall? Everyone else was fine, but he alone was crushed to death. That heartless ship owner only agreed to compensate us 3 strings of cash. We're from out of town, and that amount wasn't even enough to rent a house. What's more, my son was barely 10 years old at the time, at the age when he needed to eat and grow. He needed to develop properly, and Flora and I exchanged glances and smiled bitterly in unison. Here we go again. Grace. We've heard this story 800 times already. Seeing that she was sinking once more into her endless cycle of being a lonely widow with no one to rely on, Flora feared that the customers in my shop would all be frightened away. She quickly grabbed her arm and pulled her up to the 2nd floor. The moment she left, the shop immediately fell silent. As the hour gradually approached high, the last customer finished his bowl of spicy soup and departed. I was struggling to clean up and prepare to close when suddenly a young gentleman reined in his horse right in front of the shop. He lifted his robe and strode inside with long steps. Master Jasper, the night has grown late. Why haven't you returned to the manor yet? The moment I caught sight of Jasper, an indescribable feeling rose in my heart. Embarrassment mixed with awkwardness. My face also flushed slightly pink. Jasper clearly hadn't expected to encounter me here. A flash of surprise flickered in the depths of his eyes. Miss Vivian, so you've opened a shop here. I smiled gently and bowed my head in response. It's all thanks to your blessing, sir. Everything here was built using those 2 silver ingots you gave me. This small shop sells fried dough rings and spicy soup. Why don't you try my cooking once? Excellent. Then I thank you, miss. At first glance, he seemed quite hungry. The moment he sat down, he ate 3 full bowls of spicy soup poured over fried dough rings before finally setting down his chopsticks. How has your little brother been lately? Everything's fine. How's business? All is well. How much can you earn each day? 300 or 400 when consistently. He nodded slightly, his brows relaxing, revealing approval in his eyes. You're quite capable. After eating his fill and drinking his tea, he leaned back in his chair, his gaze carrying a hint of leisurely amusement. But you should still think of ways to keep more customers. Living in Bianjing is quite expensive. Even drinking a sip of water costs money. I hurriedly nodded in agreement. Who doesn't know that? I'm also thinking of ways. In the future, I plan to fry dough rings while singing little songs. Hearing this, the corners of his mouth curved upward, and his gaze deepened by several degrees. Singing little songs. Good idea. Let me sing a verse for you to hear, sir. I stood beside the oil vat, my hands continuously turning the dough rings, my mouth softly beginning to sing. Flowers bright moon dim gauze dress light. Tonight it's best to come to you. Bare feet step on fragrant steps, hand carrying embroidered pouch with golden thread. Meeting at the southern pavilion, hurrying to nestle trembling into your arms. I had such difficulty slipping out. Please take pity on me, as you wish, as your heart desires. Seeing that he still seemed unconvinced, I quickly imitated Flora's manner. Gently rotating my waist, curving my orchid fingers slightly, deliberately lowering my voice to sing the final line of the song. As your heart desires. Jasper suddenly choked and coughed violently, his normally sharp, angular face now flushed with 2 unusually red streaks that were impossible not to notice. Miss, do you know what that song means? After his breathing had evened out, he frowned and asked hesitantly. I shook my head slightly. I'm not sure. A young lady I rent with taught it to me. It's probably a song to invite customers back to eat. That song was never meant to invite customers to eat. Then what does it mean? Jasper froze for a moment, his expression somewhat awkward, as if he wanted to avoid the topic. But in the end, he still felt compelled to speak up. It's a love song between a wife's younger sister and her husband's older brother. About illicit affairs conducted in secret. What? In an instant, my face turned red as blood, burning hot all the way to the tips of my ears. An affair between a husband's brother and his wife's sister, that's filthy and shameless. That damned Flora, she actually taught me such a vulgar song. I absolutely must make her pay for this. The atmosphere in the shop suddenly became strange, so quiet that I seemed able to hear the faint beating of my own heart. Jasper suddenly stood up, his eyes complex, as if avoiding something. I should take my leave. That song. You'd better not sing it anymore in the future. He paused for a moment, then slowly continued. My family has some old newspapers. They've just been gathering dust at the bottom of the box for ages. Tomorrow I'll have someone bring you a few copies. Most people in Bianjing were literate and enjoyed reading newspapers. Placing them in the shop could also be considered a way of attracting customers. I hadn't expected this and was immediately overjoyed. How could I trouble you so much? Thank you so much, sir. Please, allow me to treat you to tonight's meal. He shook his head, his voice stern yet warm. Your business is small. I absolutely cannot let you bear the cost. As he spoke, he reached into his chest to retrieve money to pay. I immediately stopped him. 2 people arguing in my small shop. Please don't look down on me, sir. My expression grew serious. You may have money, but I'm not so poor and humble as all that. With that, I raised my hand and pushed him backward, continuing to push him all the way to the shop entrance, right up to where his horse stood. Jasper was tall and well built with solid muscles. Being pushed by a slender woman like me to the point where he couldn't say another word, he could only furrow his brows slightly and look at me. Suddenly, he pulled down a small bag from his horse's back and handed it to me. These are toys I just bought at the night market at Jokyo. I originally intended them for the children and grandchildren in my household. Just take them for your little brother to play with. You're not allowed to refuse. Otherwise, I won't bother bringing those newspapers either. With that, he smiled, mounted his horse in one fluid motion, gave the reins a gentle tug, and the horse's hooves kicked up a light cloud of dust in the brilliant lamplight of Bianjing before gradually disappearing from view. The next morning, sure enough, Jasper sent an attendant from his manor named Sword Clear, who delivered 2 large boxes full of old newspapers. I was so grateful I could barely form words. Master Jasper is truly too generous. Sword Clear smiled in response. Our master has always been magnanimous with an easygoing temperament. Whatever help he can offer, he never refuses. I couldn't help but lower my voice to probe further. Is your master very wealthy? Sword Clear's smile deepened as he shook his head. Our master has never paid much attention to money. He's sent newspapers and brought so many exquisite toys besides. I truly don't know how to properly repay such generosity. That day, Jasper had someone deliver an entire box of toys to Felix. There were pull carts, string puppets, bamboo snakes, wooden dragonflies, 6 ringed broadswords, 8 trigrams boards, whistles that made popping sounds, and even a little monkey figurine. These items alone must have been worth several strings of cash. Felix was overjoyed beyond measure, playing with them all day long without letting them out of his hands. Ever since he'd been living under my care, he'd spent every day picking up scraps to trade for steamed peers. Now, suddenly having so many unusual treasures in his possession, he no longer bothered picking up scraps or asking for peers. All day long he clutched that green 6-ringed broadsword and waved it wildly about. He kept clinging to me too, his mouth never stopping with questions. When will Brother Lou come again, sister? But no matter how much Felix called and waited, Jasper's figure never appeared. On the contrary, on the very day of the 15th of the 7th month, he picked up an old lady from the head of the alley. The old lady had white hair pinned with a golden hairpin, wore nothing but silk and brocade, yet her eyes were vacant, her speech confused, and her mind clearly no longer sharp. I questioned her thoroughly, but she could only shake her head and mutter, forgot everything. That day, the western district of Bianjing was unusually lively. The people were releasing flower lanterns on the Bian River, then crowding together to watch the performance of Mulian Rescues His Mother. Flora at the pleasure house was so busy her feet barely touched the ground, while Grace had returned to her hometown to make offerings to her late husband. Thus both were absent the entire night. I had originally intended to take Felix to the Bian River to release flower lanterns on behalf of Eleanor, praying for her soul's deliverance. But seeing the old lady's confused mental state, I had no choice but to tell Felix to stay behind and take good care of her while I went along the riverbank. But when I returned, I found the old woman and the young boy sitting in the house chatting merrily together. I could only hear Felix chattering away. "Grandma, do you like playing with pull carts or spinning tops better?" The old lady smiled and answered, "My eldest grandson loves the 6-ringed broadsword most of all." "Then let me lend you the 6-ringed broadsword to play with, Grandma. But please don't break it, okay? I want to eat white jade cakes." "What are white jade cakes?" "I still have one last steamed pear. I was saving it for my sister, it's very sweet. Would you like to try it, Grandma?" I stood silently at the door, listening to their conversation drift out. Involuntarily, an indescribable tenderness rose in my heart. A young child and an elderly woman with a confused mind, both so innocent, so kind-hearted, so pure. No matter how harsh and bitter this turbid world might be, there always remained a trace of sweetness amid the suffering. Just like that steamed pear Felix had secretly saved for me. A bit of simple tenderness in this cruel world. That night I lay on the floor unable to sleep soundly, because I kept my ears perked up, listening for any movement outside. In my heart, I thought that if someone came looking for their family member, I would be able to wake up in time. But Felix let the two of them sleep soundly on the bed. Loud snores and soft snores alternated with each other, like the sound of the Bian River at midnight. Sure enough, at the 5th watch, just as the shop opened, someone came searching. It was none other than Sword Clear. Sword Clear's expression was grave. Standing before the shop with little hope, he hurriedly asked, "Miss Vivian, did you happen to see an old lady who got lost yesterday?" I nodded. "I did." Sword Clear had barely finished asking when he lifted his foot to leave, but the moment he took a step, he suddenly pulled it back. "You saw her?" He was so agitated his voice cracked. "I saw her." "Where is she?" "Upstairs on my bed right now, sleeping soundly. She's the young master." "Young master." Hearing this, Sword Clear immediately ran off at full speed. Very quickly afterward, Jasper came galloping up on horseback, leading a group of people, rushing to stand before me. "Miss Vivian, yesterday my grandmother got lost in the market district to the west. I heard you took her in. Beneath his bright eyes and sparse eyebrows were dark circles. His face was extremely haggard. I only needed to glance at him once to feel my heart ache. I hurriedly led him upstairs. I did indeed take in an old lady. I don't know if she's your elder or not. Come with me and see. Please, quietly. She's still sleeping. Yes. I led Jasper straight up to the second floor and pushed the door open. Jasper looked inside once, immediately nodded gratefully, closed the door, and withdrew. Miss Vivian. Once we were downstairs, he reached into his chest again, about to pull something out. I laughed coldly. You want to give me money again, don't you? How many silver ingots this time? Money is good, truly. I want it too. But the kindness Felix showed is even more precious. What could you possibly exchange for that? I'm poor, but I also know that saving one life is better than building 7 pagodas. Besides, we only kept the old lady for one night. It's truly not worth mentioning. You're wealthy and want to travel everywhere forming bonds of kindness. Does that mean we poor people can't perform good deeds and accumulate merit? Let me tell you honestly, sir. I, Vivian, may be stingy and miserly. But every time a beggar comes to my door, I've never let them leave empty-handed. It's nothing else. I simply want to accumulate a bit of merit for my little brother and for myself. My little brother has been weak since childhood. I've vowed before the Bodhisattva to do my utmost to accumulate virtue. Every bit of merit I dedicate to him, praying that he'll be safe and grow up healthy. So, Master Jasper, please, for the sake of Felix's unintentional rescue of the old lady, leave this bit of merit for us siblings. The more I spoke, the more agitated I became. The more I spoke, the more wronged I felt. I clearly knew the gentleman before me was a great philanthropist, but somehow in the end, I couldn't hold back my tears. Hearing me speak thus, Jasper was immediately shocked as if struck by lightning, stunned in place. I just want to light a firework signal to let my good brothers know that grandmother has been found. After speaking, he pulled a signal flare from his chest, walked to the shop entrance and lit it with a match. The signal whooshed upward rapidly, spreading a plume of white smoke across the sky. In the misty white smoke, my cheeks burned hot. I hurriedly wiped away my tears, wishing I could find a hole to crawl into. Right away. Sir, would you like some spicy soup? Let me ladle you a bowl. The old lady Felix had brought home was none other than Jasper's grandmother. The one who had always loved that red and white braised pork. Yesterday, she had insisted on taking an ox cart to the Western Market to watch the performance of Mulian Rescues His Mother. The market was packed with people. She got separated from her family, and her mind somehow became confused. She just wandered out onto the main road in a daze. That's where Felix found her. He was holding his spinning top, picking up scraps in front of the shop. Unfortunately, yesterday Jasper had accompanied Prince Chin to a Taoist temple to hold a memorial ceremony, offering sacrifices to the officers and soldiers who had died for the country on distant battlefields. He didn't return until midnight, only then discovering what had happened at home. He immediately went to the Kaifeng prefecture, but last night there had been fires in several places throughout the city. The people of Kaifeng prefecture were all busy fighting fires and lacked the manpower. With no other option, he had to rely on several good brothers to search together. Who knows if he and Felix were fated by heaven or not? In any case, ever since finding that jade pendant, it was as if there were an invisible thread connecting them. In a city as vast as Bianjing, these two always seemed able to help each other. Old Lady Lou and Felix also shared a special bond. When Jasper came to take her home, she stubbornly refused. Little Felix, would you like to come to my house and eat white jade cakes? Felix lifted his head and stole a glance at my expression, momentarily swallowing his saliva with difficulty. No, I don't like them. I hurriedly smiled and said, thank you so much, old lady, but my little brother has a weak constitution. He gets bloated easily and has many dietary restrictions. Jasper saw through my thoughts and couldn't help but laugh as well. You're a good older sister, but constantly worrying excessively like a mother hen brooding over eggs. That's not the right approach. Boys need to be raised rough and tumble. Let them fall and bump into things, weather, wind and rain. Only then will their bodies grow strong. I worried to the point of gritting my teeth. I'm afraid something might happen to him. What's more, medical treatment is terribly expensive. I have a training ground to the west. From now on, I'll bring your little brother there every day to practice martial arts. You can rest assured. Dr. Bai is an old friend of mine. If your little brother gets any sprains or dislocations, just put it all on my account. How could I possibly accept that? You work in the palace. You must be incredibly busy. Bossy. For once, Jasper gave a cold snort, mocking himself as he shook his head with a bitter smile. An idle official coasting on my ancestors' warmth. Whether I go or not, who notices? On the contrary, I deeply admire how you live each day full of passionate energy. Harboring so many aspirations yet merely drifting through each day in this mortal world without the slightest hope. Please excuse this humble person for being unable to empathize with a wealthy young master worth 10,000 strings of cash, living in silk and brocade yet carrying such melancholy in his heart. For someone as poor as me, just surviving already exhausts all my energy. Aspirations. I have none. I only worry about tofu. Because without tofu there's no tofu skin, and without tofu skin, my spicy soup loses its very soul. The day Jasper took Felix to the training ground, I stood on tiptoe at the shop entrance, craning my neck to watch countless times. When the sun began its westward descent, he finally returned in high spirits. It was Sword Clear who brought him back on horseback. Where is Master Jasper? I asked Sword Clear with a smile. Our master had a bit of wine today. It was inconvenient for him back personally. Had wine. I'd nearly forgotten, Jasper was originally quite the drinker. After Sword Clear left, Felix's little mouth wouldn't stop chattering. Sister. Today brother Jasper took me to practice archery, wrestling, pitch, pot, polo, kyuju, and horseback archery. Oh yes, he also gave me a little purple pony. What? I immediately jumped for joy, stamping my feet. Why on earth did you name it Flora? Because it kept trying to steal my steamed pears to eat. I'm not someone to be trifled with. That night, Flora learned that she now shared a name with a male pony. She was so furious her face turned purple. Arms akimbo, she blocked my doorway and shrieked, Felix, you come out here right now. I'm counting to 3, 1, 2. Hearing the commotion, Grace immediately pushed open her door and stepped out. You wretched little brat. You dare bully even a child. Even if I'm just Flora quickly covered her ears, spun around and fled. Meanwhile I was frying dough rings in front of the oil stove, laughing until my back bent double. The next day at noon, Jasper came again, wearing a purple robe and riding a white horse, his figure visible from afar. That bearing, that demeanor. He was truly a young gentleman of jade and silk, his spirit soaring to the clouds. But the moment he stepped across the threshold, I immediately noticed a fresh wound on his forehead. Master Jasper, what happened to you? Jasper lightly touched his forehead, not particularly concerned, the corners of his mouth curving slightly in amusement. Last night I had a bit of wine. When riding my horse, I was careless and had an accident. I was momentarily speechless. One shouldn't ride after drinking, and one shouldn't drink before riding. That was the most basic common sense. It's nothing. Felix, is he still asleep? I'll go wake him? No need. I'll wait for him to wake up. He sat down in the chair with casual elegance and set his precious sword on the desk. Then let me ladle you a bowl of spicy soup. Good. Please add a bit of pepper. I selected a large white porcelain bowl and ladled out a full spoonful of rich, fragrant mutton bone broth. The mutton was fatty and tender. I added some tofu skin, finely sliced wood ear mushrooms, and seasonal greens, then topped it with refined salt, pepper powder, coriander powder, and black pepper. Finally, I scattered a handful of fresh, tender green scallions on top and brought it steaming to Jasper. Jasper lifted the bowl and drained it in one loud slurp. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he exclaimed loudly, extremely satisfying. My little establishment could barely squeeze in 6 dining tables. At this moment, customers filled the place. After finishing his spicy soup, he stood up and strolled around my shop. A place as small as the palm of one's hand. I couldn't tell what he was examining. After the customers gradually dispersed, he smiled and pointed to the newspaper posted on the wall, asking me, "Are these things useful?" I walked over and casually took one down, reading it intently. Very useful. These past few days, more of my regular customers have been coming in. That's good then. Felix is already 5 years old. Old enough to begin his education. I know a headmaster at the Wutong Academy. Perhaps one of these days I'll take him there to meet. I lowered my eyelids thoughtfully, then shook my head at him. Let him play for another 2 years. A child's innocent years are so few. When he grows up, he'll taste all the bitterness, soreness, sweetness, and hardship. He'll encounter countless deceptions and worldly troubles. His heart will ache, and he'll shed silent tears in the night, just as we do now. I can't bear to let his carefree days end too hastily. Besides, look. I pointed toward the fortune-telling booth across from the shop. Though I can't read, the gentleman sitting there still teaches Felix a few lines of poetry on ordinary days. That's enough already. Jasper pondered this and nodded. Then a moment later furrowed his brows slightly as he looked at me. You can't read? Then why were you just now studying that newspaper so intently? I burst out laughing heartily. I can't read, but what if the words can read me? I was looking at the illustrations in the newspaper. Perhaps my laughter woke Felix. Before long he came bounding joyfully down the stairs. The moment he saw Jasper, he immediately threw himself forward and embraced him tightly. I kept calling for Brother Jasper and he wouldn't stop. In no time at all, Felix had wrapped around him like a whirlwind and they swept out the door together. This time, he didn't mention anything at all about paying for that bowl of spicy soup. Yet somehow, my heart felt happier than if I'd earned 10 strings of cash. Felix followed Jasper to the training grounds and played for over 2 months. By the time autumn arrived, he had grown taller and his appetite had improved. Only his little face had been burned dark by the sun, making it hard to look at directly. I teased him. Where did this little charcoal briquette come from? Felix touched his own face and smiled foolishly. Brother Jasper is even darker than me, but he's the most handsome. And Brother Jasper said the most useless thing on a man's body is his appearance. What does that mean? Does he not need his face anymore? That's not it. Felix hurriedly explained. Brother Jasper said that only those who can protect their family and country are true heroes. Then why doesn't he join the army? He said his ancestors forbade their descendants from establishing military merit. What kind of bizarre ancestors are those? No wonder, despite having coffers full of gold and silver, he still frequently borrowed wine to drown his sorrows. So the root of his melancholy lay with his family's ancestors. When Felix lived with me, he spent every day picking up scraps. But these past 2 months, archery, pitch, pot, horseback archery, kyuju, he had become proficient in all of them. Dressed in a new set of clothes, he was already a refined young gentleman of prosperous Beijing. Although during that time he caught colds several times, with Dr. Bai's miraculous pediatric skills, his health quickly recovered. Alice. Once again I owed Jasper a great debt of gratitude. Oh Vivian, how will you ever repay this? One quiet afternoon, Jasper came again to pick up Felix. After he finished a warm bowl of spicy soup, I retrieved a jar of medicinal plaster from the cabinet. Master Jasper, this is something I bought from the Grand Chancellor's National Temple. It's not worth much. Please keep it with you in case it proves useful. However, I presume to offer you one word of advice. In the future, when you drink, please don't ride horses anymore. Brilliant autumn light streamed through the windows, casting streaks of golden crimson upon the dark wooden desk in the shop. Jasper froze slightly, then let out a soft laugh. His skin was the color of young wheat in the fields. His long, thick eyebrows were like swords entering their sheaths. His nose bridge was high and straight as a jade pillar. His deep black eyes held hidden radiance. The corners of his mouth tilted slightly upward. His elegant bearing was difficult to describe. Compared to wandering swordsmen of the rivers and lakes, he possessed 7 parts more warmth. Compared to white-robed scholars, he had 3 parts more unrestrained spirit. Thank you for thinking of me. I'll remember. He smiled and reached out to accept the jar of medicinal plaster. Unexpectedly, his fingers accidentally brushed against mine. His palm was rough as sandstone. The instant our flesh touched, my entire body trembled. The medicine jar nearly slipped to the ground. Fortunately, Jasper had quick reflexes. With one hand he caught the blue ceramic jar mid-air, then smoothly tucked it into his robe. Miss Vivian, I regard Felix as my own younger brother. You also needn't call me Master Jasper anymore. Just call me Jasper. My face flushed pink as I nodded slightly. Then you can just call me Vivian. Very well, Vivian. His voice was like an ancient stringed instrument, softly responding with just that one word. Yet that single word alone made my heart immediately pound like battle drums. I don't know why, but suddenly my mind grew hazy. I couldn't help but remember the song Flora had taught me. Meeting beneath the flowering crabapple in the southern pavilion, leaning against my beloved. I had such difficulty slipping out, please take pity on me. As you wish, as your heart desires. On that cold autumn night, I fell into another dream. In the dream, I saw Eleanor wearing a thin white robe, standing in despair beneath an ancient pine tree at Snow Eagle Mountain, trembling as she extended her thin, pale hands toward me. My heart broke with sorrow. Eleanor, who is it? Who dares to bully you? Tears streamed down Eleanor's face like rain. It's the mountain god of Snow Eagle Mountain. He despises my loneliness. He despises my poverty. He curses me, saying I'm nothing but a lonely ghost, a wild spirit, yet I dare to dream of becoming a goddess. Now he's leading a horde of demons and monsters to destroy the goddess statue and seize the goddess temple. Vivian, I no longer have any place to shelter. I was terrified beyond measure. Eleanor, wait for me. I'll immediately risk my life alongside you to destroy that wretched mountain god. Vivian, no. You only need to rebuild the golden body for the goddess. Once she has a golden body, I won't have to fear them anymore. Yes, Eleanor. Wait for me, wait for me. Eleanor's figure graduated into illusion before my eyes. Her hands, pale as withered bones, still struggled desperately to reach toward me. Eleanor, Eleanor. Wait for me, Eleanor. I lunged forward trying to grasp her, but she was suddenly swept away by a violent black windstorm. Heart-wrenching cries caught through the air. I jolted awake abruptly, drenched in sweat. Outside the window, the night was cold as ice. The moonlight was frigid. Inside the room I gasped for breath, my soul still shaken and unsettled. Calculating the days, I suddenly realized with shock. Today was Eleanor's birthday. At the 4th watch of dawn, the first thing I did according to custom was reverently offer incense before Eleanor's memorial tablet. I stoked the fire, added fuel, simmered soup, and fried dough rings, welcoming the early, rising customers of Bianjing. After the first wave of customers gradually departed, I went upstairs to wake Felix, urging him to get dressed, wash his face, and eat breakfast. Come now, eat your fill and stay healthy. Watching him chew with eyes squeezed shut on a piece of white jade sugar cake that the Lou family had sent, I took a boiled egg and rolled it all over his body. I rolled it until he giggled with laughter. Sister, why are you rolling an egg on me? Today isn't my birthday. I shot him a sidelong glance. Today is your real older sister's birthday. You're her only blood relative left in this world. If I don't do this for you, then who should I do it for? How does sister know? Eleanor and I swore sisterhood before the goddess statue. We held nothing back from each other in our hearts. How could I not know? On the other hand, you ungrateful little wretch. You can't even remember your own flesh and blood sister's birthday. Felix pouted his tiny lips. But I never even met her. From now on, you must engrave this in your bones and inscribe it in your heart. The 10th of the 10th month is your older sister's birthday. She suffered so much for your sake. You must remember it your entire life. Eleanor, such a gentle, kind young lady. At only 11 years old, she was sent to temple 1,000 miles from home. The hardships she endured. How could 1 or 2 sentences possibly convey them? Because of that terrifying dream, for several days afterward my spirit remained unsettled. I couldn't sit or stand still. When Jasper came to the shop to eat spicy soup, with one careless moment, I even spilled an entire plate of freshly pickled spicy cucumber all over his purple silk robe. Oh no. I'm so sorry. In my panic, I used my grease-stained hands to vigorously wipe his robe, completely failing to notice his face gradually flushing red. Vivian, is something troubling you? Don't hide it from me. He saw my furrowed brows and gloomy expression, his words revealing concern. I hurriedly nodded, then suddenly tilted my head and asked, how much money would it take to restore a temple? Hard to say precisely. 100 strings would work. 10,000 strings would also work. What if the temple is on a high mountain with treacherous roads? Then at the very least, it would require 1,000 strings. I was terrified beyond measure, so shocked I lost my voice entirely. How much? 1,000 strings. I had suffered for months and only managed to scrape together 8 or 9 strings of cash. 1,000 strings. How long would I have to sell fried dough rings to earn that much? More importantly, Eleanor was still waiting anxiously for me to rescue her from that place of water and fire. Seeing my deathly pale face, Jasper suddenly stood up and grasped my sleeve tightly. Are you truly facing such difficulty? You need 1,000 strings of cash. Don't worry. I have that amount. No, I could never repay it. Do I lack this bit of money? He spoke with slight anger. I stood there in a daze, eyes wide, mouth agape, staring at him. My heart was tangled in 100 strands of silk thread, confused as a spider's web. Realizing his impropriety, he quickly released my sleeve and explained somewhat awkwardly. Over these years, I've squandered money. If not 10,000 strings, then at least 1,000. Money is but an external possession, worth nothing at all. You siblings have shown kindness to the Lou family. If you're in trouble, I absolutely cannot stand by and watch. I spoke thus without any intention of belittling you. I'm simply worried about you. The autumn wind of Bianjing blew fresh and gentle, yet he had broken out in a layer of sweat. A towering man who had always carried himself with such proud bearing, a 6th-rank military officer in the imperial palace, now appeared extremely anxious. I was someone who had returned from the gates of death several times. I had long since grown accustomed to the filth and ugliness of this world. So when someone approached me like a flame, my heart instead raised a barrier of doubt. I didn't like this petty, false version of myself. The world had sown bitter seeds in me. How could I then plant bitter fruit on others? Therefore, my voice also quickly softened. I know your family's coffers overflow with gold and silver, but even with money, one cannot spend so wastefully. Oh, then you can rest assured, 1,000 strings is nothing. Spending it won't bankrupt me. The Lou family here in Bianjing owns 28 shops, 15 residential estates, 7 large estates. In the west and south, we also have thousands of mu of fertile fields and 5 or 6 manor houses in the western capital. The more he explained in detail, the more alarmed I became listening. Previously, I'd thought his wealth reached 10,000 strings. It turned out his family fortune reached thousands upon thousands of strings. In the end, I still didn't accept Jasper's kind offer. I feared that money not earned by my own hands wouldn't carry sufficient sincerity and would be unable to help Eleanor escape from the sea of suffering. From that day forward, I stayed up even later and rose even earlier. Several times, I nearly fainted beside the oil vat. Flora would angrily scold me. Vivian, do you no longer value your own life? Grace also gently urged, Vivian, if you fall ill, who will Felix rely on? Jasper found it harder to bear watching. One day, he rode his horse past my shop in the middle of the night. Seeing lamplight still burning inside, he dismounted, put away his whip, and immediately reproached me. The crown prince has passed away. These past few days, Bianjing hasn't been stable. I told you to close up a bit earlier. Why won't you listen? Thick, skinned and brazen. I hurriedly began cleaning up. Closing now, closing right now. In mid-October, the Great Zhao mourned the loss of its crown prince. His Majesty fell gravely ill and could not rise from bed. Both Western Xia and the Liao Kingdom sent envoys to Bianjing. But even Felix understood clearly. Neither of these delegations came with good intentions. Ever since being scolded by Jasper, every day at the hour of high I would lock up the shop tightly. But then one day, just as I had finished tidying up and was preparing to go upstairs, a young woman suddenly appeared wearing thin silk robes, pleading pitifully for me to cook her a bowl of hot spicy soup. I saw her ankles were twisted, her body trembling cold and shivering. Compassion immediately welled up in my heart. But the moment I turned around, she raised her hand and knocked me unconscious. When I regained consciousness, all I could hear was the faint clashing of weapons. The moment I opened my eyes, I saw that young woman covered in blood, wielding a short saber and viciously thrusting it straight toward Jasper's chest. In that instant my eyes suddenly turned crimson as blood, as if returning to Snow Eagle Mountain from a year ago. On the slopes of Snow Eagle Mountain, a bandit with a lecherous face was pressing Eleanor down beneath him. He tore her robes apart like a starving wolf, greedily gnawing at her jade, white neck. The mountain wind howled. I silently stepped up behind him and picked up the iron saber he had discarded in the snow. In Eleanor's terrified black eyes, cold and grim, without the slightest hesitation, I swung the blade and severed his filthy head from his body. With a spurt, the young woman in thin silk robes fell beneath my bone-cleaving blade. Before drawing her final breath, she turned her head to look at me once, her eyes filled with indescribable horror. And that look was the very last thing she saw in this mortal world. Vivian. Jasper's body was stained with blood. His terror still fresh, he hurried forward and pulled me tightly into his arms. Vivian, what's wrong? Don't be afraid. His chest was warm and solid, gradually dispelling the murderous rage raging in my heart. After a long while, I leaned on his arm and struggled to stand up, my body trembling uncontrollably. Which eye of yours saw me afraid? Since I was 8 or 9 years old, I've been used to slaughtering chickens and butchering goats. I've seen plenty of blood. Truly unexpected. A delicate woman like you would dare to take a life at such a dangerous moment. Jasper looked at my frighteningly cold expression, his heart shaken beyond measure. He couldn't help but mutter to himself. I smiled faintly and pointed toward the fallen young woman. Including her, I've already killed 3 people. I was originally just a timid, clumsy young lady. But this cruel world forced me to stain my hands with fresh blood. The first time I took a life was at Snow Eagle Mountain. On the road fleeing disaster, I encountered a group of bandits. One bandit intended to violate a young lady. I intervened to save her and killed that bandit. That young lady was none other than my Eleanor. The second time was on the road to Bianjing. An elderly woman with a kind face saw me traveling alone. She pretended to befriend me and travel together, but secretly planned to sell me into a brothel for the price of 1 bag of rice. I lured her to the riverbank and ruthlessly drowned her in the cold water. 2 times I shed blood, once to save someone, once to protect myself. And this time, it was because I accidentally glimpsed a string of red beads tied with 5-colored thread on that young woman's wrist. These red beads are produced in Western Xia. The noble ladies of Western Xia commonly like to string them into bracelets and wear them. I grew up in Shizhou and from childhood was familiar with Western Xia people, so I recognized them more readily than others. Moreover, the moment she stepped through my door, I smelled the thick scent of fresh blood on her body. Someone like that. How could she possibly be good-natured? Sure enough, my guess was correct. Later, Jasper told me that woman and her accomplices had disguised themselves as singing girls at the Doi Pavilion to assassinate the Liao Kingdom's envoy, intending to ignite hatred between the Zhao and Liao nations. Her 2 conspirators had been killed on the spot. Only she, wounded, managed to escape. What a pity! In a city of Bianjing with 10,000 lit lamps, she just happened to come to my door. What's more, by sheer coincidence, Jasper rode past Jinliang Bridge every night. Only after seeing my shop closed from afar would he leave with peace of mind. I lay delirious in bed for 2 full days. Physician Chen said my Qi and blood were both depleted, that I had worried excessively and shouldn't exhaust my mind and body so much. But my sleep was far from peaceful. Drifting in and out of consciousness, sometimes I saw my childhood self begging on the streets, being kicked repeatedly in the stomach. Sometimes I saw a group of bandits wielding cold blades, laughing savagely as they chased me for my life. Suddenly, I seemed to hear Felix and Jasper conversing softly beside my bed. Brother Jasper, am I a burden to my sister? No, you're the treasure of her heart. How could you be a burden? If you hadn't said so, I would never have suspected for even a moment that you 2 weren't blood siblings. Then, Brother Jasper, can you become my brother-in-law? Why? My sister has such a fiery temperament and has even shed blood. I'm afraid no one will dare marry her. Brother Jasper, you're the best person. So please marry my sister. Jasper let out a soft laugh, his voice suddenly infused with several degrees more tenderness. Who would dare say such a thing? Your sister is beautiful in appearance, kind-hearted, more courageous than most, and lives each day full of passionate energy. She's an incomparable young lady, but you 2 are too poor and have no dowry. Aha! You foolish little boy. Remember this well. The most precious fabric costs 1,000 gold pieces. My soul drifted through ethereal realms, sometimes ascending to the celestial palace of great emptiness, sometimes descending all the way to the underworld's judgment halls. It seemed as if my final breath was about to leave my body. But time and again, the words they spoke made me wake up in anger. Excellent. Felix, so you're belittling your sister and want to find someone to depend on for her. Is that it? And another thing. What is this G fabric? I've heard of cotton, hemp, silk, and satin, but what kind of material is Geek fabric? Why is it worth so much? On the 3rd day, I struggled to support my swaying body and climbed down from the bed. I was afraid that if I remained bedridden any longer, those 2 men, one large and one small, would decide my entire future. Old Lady Lou was sometimes lucid, sometimes confused. When she was lucid and heard I had fallen ill, she immediately had someone deliver countless medicinal ingredients and precious tonics. When she was confused, she'd have someone bring several boxes of cosmetics, jewelry and brocade fabric, saying they were gifts to help her granddaughter-in-law enhance her beauty. My face flushed bright red, half from embarrassment, half from awkwardness. I insisted on returning all those things. Jasper smiled without saying a word. With a wave of his hand, he had clear take back the gifts. Then the next day, when he came to visit, he pulled a bank note from his chest and handed it to me. This is the reward from Kaifeng Prefecture for your bravery in fighting the assassin. You deserve to receive it. Half believing, half doubting, I accepted it and looked, 2 strings of cash. That Western Xia woman was a major criminal of Kaifeng Prefecture. Vivian, you're truly formidable. My heart blossomed with joy. I tucked the banknote into my clothing and smiled at him with slight embarrassment. On the contrary, I've taken advantage once again. Actually, I know, even if I hadn't acted that day, you still could have subdued her, couldn't you? Your swordsmanship is so beautiful. It was winter in Bianjing. The wind whistled and howled. Snow blanketed everything in white. Those words shattered the false armor of strength I'd built around myself. Remembering the past, I suddenly squeezed my eyes shut. 2 streams of scalding tears welled up uncontrollably. Vivian, our dried rations will only last 3 more days. Eleanor's weak, powerless voice echoed in my ears once more. My body can no longer hold on. Little sister, please go on by yourself. Little sister, dear sister, we are sworn sisters. If you live, then I live. I cannot burden you any longer. Vivian, I beg you, little sister, please go, go. Don't look back. Yet that 14-year-old girl named Vivian, orphaned from childhood, wandering and begging, forced to drift through the world, for the first time had been cared for, been loved, been tenderly sheltered. How could she bear to abandon the only warmth left in this world? In the howling snowstorm, she struggled with all her might to carry her extremely weakened older sister on her back, 1 step through 1 snowdrift, 1 step stumbling forward. Eleanor, if we live together. If we die together. After the winter solstice, following Prince Qun Zhao Yuanxi's unprecedented appointment by His Majesty as prefect of Kaifeng, the hearts of Bianjing's people gradually settled. Previously, the position of Kaifeng prefect in the Great Zhao had always been concurrently held by the Crown Prince. Though His Majesty had not yet explicitly established a new heir, the common people all believed that the realm had a successor, and they could continue to sing and dance in peace. Thus in the pleasure houses and purple pavilions, immortal music resounded daily, and colorful robes swirled brilliantly. The 72 entertainment districts bustled even more with customers, young masters in dark cloaks and red collars frequenting them from dusk until the 3rd watch of night. After Miss Zhao V married a merchant, Flora gradually gained opportunities to take the stage. She had a pretty face, a slender waist, a clear singing voice, and a clever disposition. Therefore, all the young masters and gentlemen of Bianjing were willing to come support her. In the 12th month, the wealthy and powerful hosted more and more banquets. Grace was so busy her feet barely touched the ground. She possessed superb culinary skills, and all those distinguished nobles were willing to invite her to their estates to oversee their feasts. I heard that the reservations she'd accepted extended all the way into the 1st month. At year's end, the palace was busy with sacrificial rites, exorcising demons and driving away pestilence. Jasper also had his share of business. It wasn't until New Year's Eve that he finally managed to hurriedly stop by the shop for a visit. When he stepped across the threshold wearing a white fox fur robe, Felix was carrying a rabbit lantern, preparing to go out on the street to sell. Foolishness. Selling foolishness. Selling foolishness. 1,000 shops buy your foolishness, 10,000. Shops buy your stupidity. Buy it all up as gifts. If you want it, come with me. The moment he saw Jasper, he immediately shouted and threw himself at him, embracing him tightly while chattering away joyfully without pause. Jasper smiled, pulled 1 yuan from his money pouch, and pressed it into Felix's hand. Buying your foolishness here. I wish little Felix wisdom, health, and auspicious days. Thank you, brother-in-law. This clever little brat immediately bounced down from Jasper like a leaping carp. Seeing that I was both embarrassed and angry, holding a piece of firewood for stoking the stove, he quickly wrinkled his face teasingly at me, laughed mischievously, and scrambled away on all 4s. You've even learned the habit of speaking nonsense, have you? Don't run. Watch out, or you'll fall. I shouted after him from the doorway, but Jasper reached out and firmly grasped my sleeve. Perhaps using a bit too much force, I bumped right into his chest. My face burned hot, my heart raced irregularly. I didn't dare look up at him. I hurriedly turned, wanting to flee, but he held me tightly and showed no intention of letting go. Layer upon layer of fireworks suddenly burst into bloom against Bianjing's deep blue sky. In that instant, they blazed in myriad colors like a meteor shower. He sighed softly, then released his hold. Gently, he stroked my hair. I've just turned 20. I've never married. Both my parents have passed away. I alone shoulder the family estate. Vivian, many things I can decide for myself. Amid the brilliant starlight, he suddenly bent down, leaned close to my ear, and tenderly confessed his true feelings. In the blink of an eye, the Lantern Festival had arrived. That day, Flora and Grace insisted on dragging me to Swanda Tower to admire the flower lanterns. Felix also stubbornly demanded to go out on the streets to watch the variety shows. So we closed up the shop and happily strolled through Bianjing's sea of brilliant lanterns. We didn't return until the second watch, but before we even reached the head of the alley, we saw flames shooting sky, high from within, with billowing black smoke rolling forth. Firefighting soldiers, watchmen, and people from Kaifeng Prefecture were all rushing about, carrying buckets of water, watering cans, ladders, and iron hooks to fight the blaze. Suddenly terrified, we rushed forward in panic, only to discover that after leaving for just a short while, our beloved home had already been consumed by a sea of flames. My ears seemed suddenly unable to hear any sound at all. The fierce, raging fire twisted and writhed before my eyes. It sneered, mocking me, taunting me. A fishy, sweet surge rose from the depths of my heart. My eyes turned blood red. Heedless of everything, I charged toward the sea of flames. Vivian, you're insane. Come back. Flora's hands moved quickly. With one hand, she grabbed my arm tightly. But she realized my body had already begun trembling violently, convulsing into a ball. It's over. Everything has turned to dust. The roaring flames before my eyes seared flesh, yet I felt as if I'd fallen into an icy abyss. In my heart, daze. It's over. Truly over. Everything's gone again. Haha. I'm that Vivian with empty hands once more. Oh heaven above. You never wanted me to have peace, never wanted me to have a shred of hope, never wanted me to survive. I want to live. Even if it's a dog's life, I want to live. But you won't even grant me the chance to be a dog. You only bestow upon me the moon's reflection in water, flowers in a mirror, and time after time these illusory joys. Am I truly so irredeemably wicked? What's lost is lost, Vivian. Money is but fleeting. Once it's burned, we'll build again. Grace held the terrified Felix tightly with her left arm, her right arm embracing me as I alternated between madness and tears, speaking in choked, broken words. But Eleanor's memorial tablet is still in there. I raised my face to the sky, knelt prostrate on the ground, and before the towering flames, screamed in crazed anguish. She already froze to death once. Oh heaven, how could you bear to burn her a second time? How could you be so cruel? I don't know when I fainted from rage. I only know that when I came to, I was already lying in a room with exquisite furnishings. That night, I had screamed myself hoarse in that narrow alley, driven to madness. It was Jasper who rushed to find us and brought us poor homeless souls to temporarily shelter in a small estate at Dianshui Lane. Flora and Grace worried about Felix, and also feared I might think myself into doing something foolish. So day and night they kept vigil beside me, not leaving even to relieve themselves. A few days later, seeing that I had gradually recovered my spirits, Flora cautiously asked. She was Felix's biological older sister, and also my dearest sworn sister in this world. What? Your dearest sworn sister isn't me. Grace, standing beside us, was also shocked to the point of numbness. What are you saying? Felix's real older sister, could you possibly be? I lay on the Arhat bed sadly shaking my head. Eleanor was my sworn sister. I vowed before her spirit that I would definitely care for her little brother in her place. Ah, so that's how it is. But I see Felix treats you with genuine affection. Yes. He and I, one was fated by destiny to have twin older sisters, one was originally an outsider to the bloodline. We're not flesh and blood, yet our bond runs deeper than blood itself. Flora refused to accept this. Felix and I are also very close. He even named his little pony after me. But when all is said and done, Vivian, why am I not your best sworn sister? I shot her an annoyed sidelong glance. Eleanor was willing to die for me. Would you dare? For someone as vibrantly alive as me. Even if my parents stood before me, I still couldn't die in their place. Grace could no longer bear Flora's nonsense. She pushed her aside, then grasped my hand and asked with concern, why exactly did your Eleanor pass away? She. Those knots in my heart that I dared not touch even in dreams now wrapped around me like vines, choking off my breath. I struggled to speak. Flora grew anxious. Hurry up and tell us. The string of my heart snapped with a sharp twang. My spirit suddenly shattered completely. I covered my face with both hands as large. Hot tears streamed through the gaps between my fingers. She willingly froze herself to death because she didn't want to burden me. She willingly froze to death. Years ago on Snow Eagle Mountain, a snowstorm suddenly struck. Eleanor and I were trapped in the goddess temple. Our provisions were nearly exhausted. She already suffered from asthma. Not wanting to be a burden to me, she forced me to take what little dried rations remained and descend the mountain alone. Seeing that I would rather die than obey, on that chillingly cold night, she staggered out of the goddess temple alone wearing only a thin robe. The snow was so deep, the wind howled so fiercely, she left all her clothing for me. Afraid I would be terrified, she deliberately sought out an ancient pine tree in a distant place. By the time I found her at dawn, she sat smiling serenely beneath that frozen pine tree. Her face was bluish pale, her entire body covered in white snow. She had already stopped breathing, embracing purity, reflecting sun and moon, the goddess's body forever accompanied by cold snow's voice. My Eleanor, she used her very life to carve out a path for me to descend the mountain and live, yet she herself walked a road with no return. I don't understand what it means to be bound by life and death. I've never truly known what the most precious fabric costs 1,000 gold means. I only know this: without Eleanor on Snow Eagle Mountain that year, there would be no Vivian in the capital city of Bianjing today. On the night of the Lantern Festival, the kitchen behind a shop in the alley suddenly caught fire. Because the weather was dry and things easily combustible, the flames spread rapidly, burning down an entire row of shops along the street. We had only just gone to see the Lantern Festival for a short while. When we returned, we no longer had a home to shelter in. After that disaster, my spirit collapsed. I sat dazed beneath the eaves all day long until Jasper handed me a property deed for a building. I've purchased Tung Fu Tower on Panlu Street. I'm too busy to manage the business myself and haven't found a suitable manager yet. Vivian, could you lend me a hand? I accepted the deed, both angry and amused, pouting at him. I'm currently ill, not stupid. I can still tell good from bad. I know you want to help. It's just that I've now lost all my spirit. I'm afraid. But didn't you once say that as long as you have one breath left, you'll struggle to the very end? When did I say that? You said it to Felix. That blasted little brat. Why does he tell you everything? Because he wants me to become his brother-in-law. Hey, he's just a child talking nonsense. Please don't take it to heart. My heart pounded wildly like urgent drums. I couldn't help but blush bright red all over my face. Felix never speaks without basis. Jasper stood before me like a towering pine or cypress, his expression sincere, his eyes blazing bright as torches, as if wanting to dispel all the cowardice, doubt, and obscurity in my heart. Moreover, I speak my truth. Vivian, I speak from my heart. You value both affection and righteousness. Your heart embodies chivalrous justice. You live each day ablaze with passionate energy. You're completely different from those arrogant, pretentious young ladies in their boudoirs. As for me, I have an unrestrained temperament. I've always admired those with loyal courage and righteous spirit. My heart is moved by you. I wish to form a worldly bond with you, to roam freely through the capital together, whether settling in the bustling city or hiding away in tranquil wilderness, to be forever united in heart, growing old together side by side. Even if the world brings 10,000 hardships, we'll never part for a lifetime. Beneath the quiet eaves, before the silent window, his words were earnest, his gaze steadfast as he slowly laid bare his heart. After Jasper left, I sat stupidly beneath the eaves, my heart tangled like knotted silk. I didn't know what to do. Flora had somehow tiptoed up behind me at some point. She squeezed my shoulder hard with one hand and gave it a solid pat. A single man and an unmarried woman having a rendezvous beneath the eaves. So the good news is settled, isn't it? I startled in alarm and hurriedly defended Jasper. Jasper is a noble gentleman, as pure and cool as bright moonlight and refreshing breeze. He always treats me with proper decorum. You absolutely must not ruin his good name. Flora angrily jabbed her finger hard into my forehead. You fool. I'm asking if the good news is settled yet. With someone as wealthy as Master Jasper. With such a handsome appearance and such fine character. If you miss this chance, there truly won't be another opportunity. If you don't marry him, do you want to marry that David from the roast meat shop instead? Vivian, I'm not threatening you. If you don't take the initiative to seduce him, I'll do it myself. You wouldn't dare. Why wouldn't I dare? I had such difficulty slipping out. Please take pity on me. As you wish, as your heart desires. Flora angrily raised her orchid fingers. Her phoenix eyes glinted flirtatiously as she leaned against me, then brazenly moved forward, bringing her small cherry lips closer. Caught completely off guard, I was nearly kissed on the cheek by this crazy girl. You shameless wretch. You dare sing that lewd song right in front of me. Stop right there. I'm going to beat you senseless. I sprang to my feet in a fury and raised my hand, ready to chase her down and give her a thrashing. In the 3rd month of late spring, Bianjing's grass grew lush and green, birds sang sweetly. On Panlu Street a tower quietly appeared bearing the name, Snow Pearl Tower. Distinguished guests, today allow us to tell you a tale titled, The Bianjing Story of Eleanor and Vivian. The story goes that on Panlu Street, a Snow Pearl Tower has just opened for business. The manager of Snow Pearl Tower is a young lady with a cinnabar beauty mark adorning her forehead. Her gracious name is Vivian. She also has a sworn sister named Eleanor. Oh my, these two are both extraordinary women indeed. The story goes that in the beginning, the two met at Snow Eagle Mountain. Snow Eagle Mountain, where wind cuts cold and snow falls hard. The accumulated snow there is even deeper than the city walls at Nangsan Gate. With provisions about to run out, Eleanor knew her illness was severe. To force Vivian to descend the mountain quickly, she wore only a thin undergarment and willingly froze to death beneath an ancient pine tree. Alas, how pitiful, how regrettable, how admirable, how lamentable. The storyteller in the pleasure house reached this moving passage and couldn't help but choke with emotion, tears wetting his eyelashes. The audience below the stage, whether young men or refined ladies, were all moved to tears. One spectator wiped away tears and sighed. This is no different from the friendship between Yang and Zuo during the Warring States period. If both eat, one lives. If both go, both die. What use are 2 deaths? Better to sacrifice oneself to fulfill the other. Miss Eleanor's actions are no different from Zuo Botao of old. 2 delicate women. One calmly seeking death for the sake of sworn sisterhood, the other embracing great righteousness to raise a young child. Truly, even the men of this world cannot compare. Alice, how magnificent. Well then, what are we waiting for? Let's hurry to Snow Pearl Tower. I hear the mountain and sea banquet there is limited to just 10 tables per day. Arrive late and there won't be any seats left. Let's go, let's all go. I hear Prince Qin and the prime ministers of both offices frequently visit to dine on their mountain and sea delicacies. Who knows? If we're fortunate, we might even catch a glimpse of them. From the day Snow Pearl Tower opened, customers streamed in daily without pause. There was even a generous patron who lavishly spent 2,000 strings of cash to reserve a private room for an entire year. To have achieved such prosperity. In truth, it had nothing whatsoever to do with me as the female manager. There were simply too many people who extended helping hands to support me. Flora had countless old friends and connections at the entertainment district in the western city. She asked lyricists and singing girls, storytellers to compose songs and melodies, compile scripts about the story of Eleanor and me. Now throughout the capital of Bianjing, everyone knew the tale of Eleanor and Vivian in detail. Everywhere by the wells, people hummed the Song of Golden Orchid. Grace possessed unparalleled culinary skills. She proactively took charge of Snow Pearl Tower's kitchen. Under her nagging supervision, every few days there would be novel dishes. The menu in the hands of tea and wine connoisseurs brought delightful surprises to diners every single time. Jasper was even more thoughtful. He had countless good brothers throughout Bianjing and maintained deep friendship with Prince Qun. Prince Qun was an enthusiastic person. From the day Snow Pearl Tower opened, he frequently visited to show his support, causing all the young ladies from official families throughout the capital to dress up splendidly and flock together to witness the excitement. Now, from high-ranking officials down to common people in cotton cloth, who in Bianjing didn't know about Snow Pearl Tower, Jasper said the profits of Snow Pearl Tower were divided 60% to him, 40% to me. Initially, I didn't pay much attention. But by the 9th month, I had already received over 12 strings of cash as my share. This wealth descending from heaven left me dizzy and dazed, stupefied like a clay statue. Jasper smiled gently and flicked the pearl hairpin adorning my hair. Why are you still in a daze? Hurry and give me the money. I'll immediately send someone to Shizhou. In the winter of the 5th year of Xining, several hundred craftsmen restored the goddess temple atop Snow Eagle Mountain and recast a golden body for the goddess. The night the golden statue was completed, Eleanor came to me again in a dream. Moved, I asked her, Eleanor, does that mountain god still dare to bully you? Eleanor wore a brilliant golden fox fur robe. Her complexion was rosy, her spirit vibrant. Gone was any trace of her former gloom and despondency. She grasped my hand tightly, joyful and choked with emotion. Dear little sister, I have now cultivated a golden body and am about to ascend as a deity. No one in this mortal world will dare insult me ever again. That's wonderful. Eleanor, wait for me. Tomorrow I'll come visit you? No. She gently shook her head at me. Vivian, don't retrace the old path. You've reached today with such difficulty, and that old road held too many hardships. Continue forward, little sister. Ahead lies mortal reunion, 10,000 homes with rising smoke from their hearths. You are blessed. In the future, your children and grandchildren will fill the halls. For 10,000 generations, you'll have peace and prosperity. Tears streamed uncontrollably down onto her hands. Eleanor, will we ever meet again? Eleanor smiled faintly. She gently wiped away the tears on my eyelashes, then turned her head to gaze compassionately toward the void. The way of heaven is constant. What flows is also what departs is also what flows. Little sister Vivian, look, the full moon is me. Specks of dust are me. Flowers blooming and insects singing in the wilderness are me. Wind rising and snow falling on winter nights are also me. It's just that when I manifest, you're deep in slumber. When you're busy, I hurry past. We simply can no longer meet face to face, but will always remain in each other's hearts. Eleanor smiled and departed. That parting was forever. I knew she would never return in my dreams again. On that cold winter night, I woke and pushed open the window to suddenly see snow gently falling. White snowflakes like goose down drifted softly down onto the stone bridge railings, onto the curved, upturned eaves of the tower, onto the corridor outside my room's latticed windows. That night, I stood silently by the window for a long time, crying dry all the tears of an entire lifetime. Near year's end, the greedy and treacherous Western Xia people stirred up trouble at Qinfeng Circuit. The local innocent people suffered immeasurably. The peace faction and the war faction in the court argued fiercely in Wenda Hall. But His Majesty still hadn't reached a decision. One day, Jasper got thoroughly drunk again. In the private room at Snow Pearl Tower, he slept in a stupor from noon until the 3rd watch. When he awoke, his entire being was melancholy and depressed, his heart heavy with worries. Both annoyed and heartbroken, I handed him a cup of sobering tea. Unable to restrain myself, I scolded, "You really are like a dog that can't stop eating filth. What's so good about wine?" He let me wipe his face with a cloth as I pleased. Then his eyes suddenly flashed with fierce light as he ground his teeth. Those Western Xia dogs slaughter innocent people of the Great Zhao. I hate that I cannot devour them alive, break their bones, strip their sinews and flesh, drink their blood dry. Even if I fall into the Yellow Springs, I'll pursue them to the end, tear their corpses into 100 pieces, grind their bones to dust. I also despise those Western Xia dogs. If that's the case, why doesn't my husband petition to join the army and go to Qinfeng Circuit? Today I heard Miss Chen from the Deputy Privy Khan's family say, His Majesty has already approved the military expedition. Jasper sadly shook his head. The Lou family. I have ancestral instructions. Our descendants are not permitted to establish military merit, lest it bring future disaster and death upon us. There exist such strange ancestral teachings. She didn't understand. He simply grasped my hand, leaned against the Arhat bed, and sighed as he asked, "Have you heard of the Chai clan?" Actually, my ancestors were surname Chai, not Lou. The Chai clan. I was immediately alarmed. The Chai clan that received the Iron Certificate with Ver Emperor Taizu. In the Great Zhao, who didn't know about the Chai family? I recall that in the beginning when Emperor Chai Shizong still reigned, the Zhao clan was merely his palace commander. Later, when Chai Shizong passed away and his young son succeeded, the Zhao clan was supported by the ministers to seize the Chai family's realm and altars. But Emperor Zhao Taizu, remembering the Chai clan's grace and benevolence, couldn't bear to harm their descendants. So he specially bestowed the iron certificate with vermilion script, written upon it, "The descendants of the Chai clan. I shall not execute them. Even if they plot rebellion, I'll only punish the individual himself. I won't execute them in the marketplace. I won't implicate their clan." Yet after Emperor Taizu, several of the Chai descendants still died unnatural deaths one after another. Only the young son was daringly adopted by General Liu Yan and had his name changed to Lu Quan. So it turned out Jasper was a descendant of Lu Quan. No wonder. My ancestors feared that future descendants would be trees taller than the forest, so they only permitted us wealth and prosperity but forbade establishing military merit. Though I've arduously practiced martial arts since childhood and harbored aspirations to serve my country, I'm bound by ancestral instructions. I can only helplessly watch as tigers and wolves devour our people and ravage our realm. Vivian, the world praises me for my chivalry. But I alone know clearly. Aside from having abundant wealth, I truly cannot do anything. A towering man, upright and brave, imposing and magnificent to such a degree. Yet speaking these words, sorrow welled up from the depths of his heart. 2 lines of scalders rolled down his cheeks. I let him embrace me and cry for a while. After he calmed down, I spoke slowly. My mother passed away at 19. My father died at 20. Eleanor lived only 15 years. I understand. Your life has held many hardships. I swung my hand and punched him hard once on the shoulder. You fool. What I want to say is, everyone must die eventually. I acknowledge that your ancestral concerns indeed have merit, but the world now is different from the past. Today's reigning emperor is a rare enlightened ruler with a benevolent heart. Prince Qin and you are close friends and kindred spirits. Over 100 years have passed. Would the imperial family still hold grudges over what happened to you? My husband, you're already 21 this year. You've lived longer than both my parents and Eleanor. It's not wasted. If in this lifetime you could roam freely across distant battlefields, once with complete satisfaction, even if you fell into the 9 springs afterward, it would be better than burying yourself in bedchambers, borrowing wine to drown sorrows, living a wasted life. I grew up in Shizhou. Since childhood, I've been accustomed to seeing Western Xia soldiers kill and plunder. Even my mother lost her life beneath their blades. If I were you, I would have long since defied ancestral instructions to join the army. At most, after falling into the underworld, I'd kowtow and apologize to my ancestors. My words today are somewhat harsh. I know a 3-inch tongue cannot easily change your mind. But I truly don't want to see you forever wearing that expression of frustrated ambition. I wish for your peace and prosperity. I wish for you to fulfill your desires. I wish for you not to betray your heart. If you truly respect your ancestors, you should follow the example of Emperor Chai Shizong of old. Campaigning in all directions, driving out the barbarians. That would make you a true hero who doesn't fail heaven and earth. I'm originally a crude person. I don't understand lofty principles. I only know that a dignified 9-foot man. At home he should be the pillar of his family. For his country he should be the protective wall. Not someone who pretends and postures day after day, going out to drink some dregs of wine. Beside the winter window at Snow Pearl Tower, Jasper was so shocked by my words that he stood stunned. He stared intently at me, then suddenly pulled me tightly into his embrace. Striking the drum, wielding the long spear, the sword's roar establishing extraordinary merit. Vivian, thank you for awakening me with your scolding. In the spring of the 6th year of Xining, Deputy Privy Councillor Chen Shozhen led 10,000 elite troops toward Qinfeng Circuit to pacify the chaos. Bearing the title of recruiting and taming captain, Jasper was also among their ranks. On the day of departure, I joined everyone else to see him off all the way to the city gates. Outside Bianjing's walls, there was no scene of sorrowful parting, no clinging reluctance, only valiant golden armor and heroic songs over wine. That day, Jasper wore dark battle robes and armor. His bow gleamed brilliantly, his sword flashed like frost. Silver saddle, white horse, the spring breeze carried him forth. Upon his face was an unprecedented bearing, a magnificent spirit and temperament. A true man protecting home and country. That was a genuine hero. Compared to his usual wasteful spending throughout the capital of Bianjing, he was now many times more captivating. In Bianjing's 3rd month, spring willows drooped gracefully. The sound of wind echoed through the high heavens. He and the other officers and soldiers strode powerfully forward, their figures gradually disappearing at the end of the road. Watching his retreating back, Flora beside me wrung her handkerchief hard, her face full of inappropriate anger. "You're such a fool. You hadn't even secured him yet and you let him set off to war. It's enough to make one die of anxiety." After Jasper departed for battle, I enrolled Felix at the renowned Wutong Academy, the finest in all Bianjing. In the blink of an eye, that once tiny child had become a refined 7-year-old young gentleman. These past 2 years, following Jasper's daily training at the grounds, his body had grown strong and sturdy as a young calf. Every time the academy organized kickball matches or pitch-pot games, he would steadily claim the championship position. Flora had now become the most famous singing girl at the entertainment district in the western city. Wealthy young masters competed to reward her with silver. For a single song on the red flute, countless encores were demanded. She had even performed at banquets hosted by high officials. Grace had become even more talented. I heard that privately. Several tower establishments wanted to invite her to become their head manager and kitchen supervisor. But she firmly refused, even saying, "In this world, who doesn't encounter 7 disasters and 8 calamities? If one day I face difficulties, little Flora will surely be able to raise my son to adulthood like a birth mother. Can any of you do that?" Though I'm a lonely widow with no one to rely on, my heart understands clearly. Hearing those words, my heart felt both joy and a lump in my throat. Joy that my character was recognized by others. A lump in my throat because Grace's son was only 3 years younger than me. Moreover, he was as tall and robust as a tiger, his stature a full head taller than mine. I was raising him like a son. I feared it wasn't quite proper. Snow Pearl Tower's business remained perpetually prosperous. Even with Jasper absent, his many good friends throughout the capital of Bianjing still came daily to show their support. Especially Prince Qin. No, that's not right. Prince Qin had been officially enfeoffed by His Majesty as Crown Prince. Now I had to address him as Crown Prince, Your Highness. Crown Prince Zhao Yuangxi and Jasper were both straightforward, magnanimous people. His Highness often brought the Crown Princess to Snow Pearl Tower to sample novel dishes while casually chatting about the war situation at Qinfeng Circuit. I was extremely fond of the Crown Princess because not only was she pretty and vivacious, but she also had an extremely interesting Bodor name. Big Snake Jiang. The two of us hit it off immediately upon meeting, perfectly compatible in heart and mind. Later, when the Crown Prince was busy with state affairs, the Crown Princess would often come find me on her own. One day when mentioning Jasper's strategies and tactics on the battlefield, the Crown Princess smiled mischievously at me. "With such a fine husband, you absolutely must not let this opportunity slip away. Remember when we first met, if it hadn't been for me on Lantern Festival Street, boldly calling out to my cousin the Crown Prince, I'm still unmarried. Cousin, haven't you fallen for me at first sight yet? So you see, when necessary, you must be bold." She made my cheeks burn hot with her words. Be bolder. But, I don't know how. The Crown Princess grew anxious. If you don't know, then study from the story scripts. There's no shortage of those. Since Snow Pearl Tower opened, I had also learned to read a few characters from the scholars at the academy. After the Crown Princess left, that very night I gathered an entire basket of story scripts to study carefully. At the third watch of midnight, the more I read, the more enthralled I became. The more I studied, the hotter my face grew. It took tremendous effort before I could finally doze off. Then I dreamed I was twisting my slender waist before Jasper, opening my mouth to speak in coquettish, flirtatious tones. "Please take pity on me, as you wish, as your heart desires." Night after night I longed for you, yearning from early spring all the way to late autumn. Finally, one morning, with osmanthus fragrance heavy in the air, Jasper returned home. It was a morning without any prior warning. I woke from sleep in the small estate at Dianshui Lane. The moment I opened my eyes, I saw a man in purple robes sitting before my bed curtain, his eyes blazing bright as he gazed at me without pause. His eyebrows were long, his nose bridge high and straight, his deep black eyes held hidden radiance. He looked exactly like the man in my dreams, except for a scar across his right cheek. Before the beauty's bed, he smiled as he looked at me. I gazed at him in a daze. Our 4 eyes met, tender feelings flowing endlessly between us. Suddenly, 2 lines of scalding tears rolled down my cheeks. It doesn't matter at all. The most useless thing on a man's body is his appearance. But I deeply admire your face. What? You don't find anything strange about it. It's just a small scar. Vivian, it doesn't hurt at all. Moved, he pressed his forehead against my hair, wrapped his arms around me tightly, wishing we could merge into one. Afraid that if he loosened his hold even slightly, it would mean another parting. The heat from his body burned my senses into confusion. I tilted my face up awkwardly and placed my burning lips upon his cheek. Then, making up my mind, I boldly tore open the brilliant apple brocade bed curtain. The room overflowed with rich spring fragrance. As the old story scripts say, food and sex are part of human nature, men rejoicing, women loving, in broad daylight. In the winter of the 6th year of signing, Jasper and I formed our matrimonial bond. The wedding was extraordinarily lovely. Throughout the capital of Beijing, from high-ranking officials down to common people in cotton cloth, anyone was welcome to attend. Regardless of status, all were invited to the feast. During the wedding, the one most overjoyed beyond measure was Felix. Time and again he loudly called out, "Brother-in-law," tears streaming down his face as he called. This clever little brat has finally married off his sister. After the marriage, Jasper entered the Privy Council. Every day he was as busy as a hidden dragon, his head visible but not his tail. As for me, as manager of Snow Pearl Tower, I also stayed up late and rose early every day, diligent and conscientious. But however late and quiet the night, we always waited for each other to enter dreams together. Though in this life we couldn't become trees with intertwined branches, we vowed to be birds that fly wing to wing. In the blink of an eye, autumn of the 7th year of signing arrived. War broke out again at Hedong Circuit. Jasper once more had to lead troops into battle. I personally prepared his traveling provisions, my pregnant belly already protruding high. Once again, I saw him off in his battle robes all the way to the gates of Beijing. My husband, oh my husband. You love me deeply, yet you also hold dear the brocaded realm beneath your feet. Those who praise you don't falsely claim you're both chivalrously righteous and extraordinarily gentle. Eleanor once said, "The way of heaven is constant. What flows is also what departs is also what flows." The willows drooped gracefully. Though my heart held immeasurable reluctance, I absolutely couldn't bear to prevent you from soaring freely across the vast expanse. For the general grasps his sword to support the southern heavens, his wife transforms into the long wind's banner. In truth, we have never been parted. This tale reveals that survival forges the strongest bonds. Not through blood, but through sacrifice and unwavering loyalty. Vivian's journey from destitute orphan to prosperous manager proves that resilience, coupled with gratitude for those who lit us in our darkest hours, transforms tragedy into triumph. True wealth lies not in gold, but in honoring those who gave everything so we could live, and in courageously building a future worthy of their sacrifice. The story ends here for now. If it touched your heart or left you thinking, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Please like, subscribe, and share Raccoon Tale to help more stories come to life. See you in the next tale.